Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and this thing's name is the Lexus NX 350h. And it is, believe it or not, the only normal hybrid that you can get in this segment. So today what we're going to do is compare it to all its main rivals, hitting the best and the rest, starting with the rest. Now the first thing is it's a little bit small. The exterior dimensions would suggest that it's more of a GLC and X3 fighter, but you get into the interior and the cargo area and it's more X1 GLB. Trunk space is actually less than an X1 and about the same as a GLB. And rear seat space is kind of the same story. So it's kind of a tweener, coupled with the fact that its price is also more closely comparable to an X1 and a GLB than the X3 and the GLC. And you'll kind of notice that as a trend throughout this video. In terms of price and interior size and volumes and stuff like that, it's more closely related to the subcompact SUVs, but it does kind of look and feel from the exterior more like a compact SUV. And then number two, it's just kind of the least sporty. This isn't really a shock, and personally, I don't even truly feel this is a bad thing. But the NX is probably the least sporty driving of the segment here. The BMW, the Mercedes, the Alfa, and even the Acura all have more sporting tendencies. Sure, if you don't go for the 350h, you can get the F-Sport package with the adaptive dampers, but personally, I like what this thing is. It rides exactly how I want my Lexus hybrid compact SUV to ride, which we'll talk about more on the good side. And then there's just a couple small things here and there that aren't really a big deal. They're not deal breakers, but just kind of mild annoyances that I noticed this week. For one, you have ambient lighting, but it is very minimal in comparison to what you would get from something like a BMW or definitely a Mercedes. And secondly is that the instrument cluster. It's fully digital, it's 7 inches, and it looks pretty good, but it doesn't do nearly as much in terms of customizability as something like the BMW or Mercedes again. And then in terms of your steering wheel, you have these touch-sensitive pads on either side, which are very cool, and you can customize to different stuff, and they function in a lot of different ways. But if you just go to press the next track, it sometimes doesn't register, so you have to end up pressing it twice. Again, small little annoyances, probably not a big deal to you, but just thought in the interest of being thorough, I would mention them. But let's talk about all the places that this NX is brilliant. The first and possibly best thing is the efficiency. The NX here in 350h form is the only traditional hybrid in the segment. Everything else is either a mild hybrid from Germany or a plug-in hybrid or an Acura RDX, which has no hybrid-ing at all, which of course makes it sit as the most efficient option here. It's rated at about 39 mpg combined, which is really efficient and pretty accurate to what I've been seeing. But remember when I said the thing was like the least sporty? Well, this is why. And personally, this is more Lexus's strong suit, so I'm glad they're playing to their strengths and not trying to sportify something that doesn't really need to be sporty. So this is the most efficient, but I feel like has the nicest interior. We were in the Alfa Romeo Tonale last week, and this is a whole tier and a half above. The materials here are nicer feeling than even some $100,000 BMW and Mercedes-Benz and Audi interiors. The leathers here are real and really supple. And then you get great luxury amenities like heated and cooled seats, even with an auto climate concierge type function. You get a heated steering wheel, you get heated rear seats. I mean, you're just not getting some of these things in any other places in this segment. And then back behind the wheel, I just wanted to round out the whole driving experience because it's really great and it's really self-aware, which I've really come to love. It does 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds, and you have like 240 horsepower. I don't really care, to be honest. The cabin is just, it's so isolated and refined. The damping is soft and cushy without feeling sloppy, and the autopilot works really well. You know, it makes your life a lot easier. And I've said it a couple times already, and this is exactly what I'm looking for from something like this. It's not pretending to be sporty or making the ride too stiff and ruining the Lexusness. This is very self-aware, and it's excellent for that. And the tech stack here isn't packing any super crazy gimmicks, but it's got everything you need, and it's a huge screen, which people love. It's kind of a lot like Audi in that way, where it's not packed with any unnecessary frills. But you've got a 7-inch digital instrument cluster, which doesn't really do a whole lot except change color with your drive mode. But then you have the massive 14-inch center screen, and everything is touch now, thank God. You've got wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, you've got dual Bluetooth connections, over-the-air updates, so it's constantly up to date, and you've got 360 cameras, which are pretty good, but you again still have that useless egg view, but it doesn't hurt anything. Other brands will do more to like punch you in the face with crazy gimmicks and flashy ambient light like Mercedes, but ultimately here in this NX, it's got everything that I want, everything works, and it's easy to use. So it's a win in my eyes. And then just briefly mentioning the autopilot or the driver assist stuff here. I know I touched on it a minute ago, but it's really, really good. It deftly navigates construction and all the transitions near my house. You can do the single kind of lane change and a lane change for you. That's new, I think. I don't remember that being in the plugin that we tested about 2 years ago. It's also got park assist that'll do parallel or perpendicular or angled parking. It's great. It's got all the stuff that I really need. The only thing that I guess it could have is just more autonomous level 2 kind of hands-off driving for longer periods of time, but I love it. It's been a joy on the highway. But then in the rear seats, this point really comes down to what you're comparing this thing against. If you're comparing rear seat space to a GLC or an X3, you're gonna have a bad time. But if you compare it to something like the X1 and the GLB we've been comparing it to all video, it'll be a lot more competitive. Plus you get really nice stuff back here, like really rich leathers that I'm not seeing anywhere else in this segment. Plus you get heated seats back here and chargers. I mean, you don't even get chargers in the back of the new GLC, the step maybe above. So, not bad back here. I also have headroom too. And finally, price. And again, this comes down to just how you compare it and what you're comparing it to. It's several $1,000s cheaper to start than an X3 or a GLC. And it's more in line with, again, the GLB and the X1. The hybrid here starts at $45,000, and as tested, it's optioned all the way up to $58K, but it's packed with some things, and you could probably shave off a couple $1,000s and still get a really nice spec. But again, it's the only true hybrid. It's the most efficient, it's got the most luxury, and interior materials are the best. But it's also incredibly smooth, so let's grab the key and go for a drive. Okay, we are in sport mode, and you can tell because the gauge clusters are the same, except it's red. Foot down. Ooh, traction lighting up. Okay. That's not really where this thing is at home. We're gonna flick it back into eco because that's really where this thing wants to be. That's where it's at its best. I mean, you got 240 horsepower, 0 to 60 is like 7-ish seconds. It's not slow, but it's not exciting, it's not fast. If you want exciting and fast, go for the X1 or the X2. You can get an M35i, I believe, for either of those. But what you have here, and what I love this thing so much for, is it's just a Lexus. It's not pretending to be a BMW. It's not pretending to be, you know, a Porsche Macan. It's not pretending to be sporty or anything other than it is. It's just very, very smooth, very luxe, and I hate to keep throwing the Alpha under the bus, but that's just because we had it last week, and it is a competitor to this, but these leathers are so much nicer, the materials, the build, like there's no creaks and rattles, everything just feels like $10,000, $20,000 more expensive in this cabin than in the Alpha. And I gotta be honest, I've spent some time in the X1 and even, you know, the GLA, GLB, and the materials and the build in here are better. They're better, I think, than the Acura as well, though it's been a couple years since I've been in the RDX. So as far as a luxury thing goes, you just want a luxury SUV, this is it. This is, I think, the thing that you want. The leathers are the nicest. You get the auto heated and cooled seat, the auto heated steering, like it's just nice stuff that you're not really getting anywhere else. And then when it comes to the actual driving experience, again, everything is super smooth. The steering is light but has a little bit of weight to it, so it doesn't feel like completely unhinged or unconnected from the road. If you don't have any music on, you might notice the transition between gas and electric, but if you have music on, which you probably do 90+% of the time, you're not really gonna notice it. It's just smooth. The way that it makes power, the braking is nice and organic feeling, which is not something that you always get from a hybrid. So everything here has been tuned to be very Lexus, and I think it's excellent for that. If you're wanting it to be a sporty car, don't get it. But if you're wanting it to be a super comfy, high-tech, you know, luxury compact SUV, this is brilliant. And I think that's a good time for the final thoughts. So that is the best and the rest of the Lexus NX 350 Hybrid. And I have to say, I really like this thing. It's not perfect, it's a little small, but the rest of it is very self-aware and it's so much better for it. It is a brilliant luxury hybrid efficient cruiser. Thank you to Toyota and Lexus for letting us have a go, and we'll see you in the next one.